Hey everyone, welcome back. You've been exploring some really fascinating stuff lately. The science of aging and that age-old quest for immortality. We'll get ready to dive even deeper because we're taking on an article from Medium called Can Humans Live Forever? The Science of Aging and Immortality.
Oh, wow.
It was just published this month, so it's got some really up-to-date ideas and research, so buckle up.
Okay.
Because we're going to unpack the latest scientific thinking on aging, the cutting-edge research that could actually extend our lifespans.
Wow.
And even tackle what it could all mean for humanity if we really could live forever. Are you ready?
I am definitely ready for this one. What really strikes me about this article is that it doesn't just focus on the science. It actually goes there and explores the philosophical and even societal implications of actually living forever.
Yeah.
It's a pretty comprehensive look at a topic that has fascinated us for centuries.
Yeah, it really does tackle the whole picture. So let's start with the basics.
Okay.
The science of aging. You know how our bodies just eventually start to show wear and tear?
Yeah, definitely.
What's going on at a cellular level that causes those changes?
Well, one of the key factors is our cells just become less efficient at repairing themselves over time. And this leads to all sorts of things we associate with aging, like wrinkles, slower healing, decreased energy levels.
Yeah.
But it actually goes even deeper than that.
Okay.
A big part of this whole aging process is tied to these things called telomeres.
Telomeres.
Yeah, they're like these little protective caps on the ends of our chromosomes,
Okay.
which are basically the structures that hold our DNA.
So like the little plastic tips on shoelaces that keep them from fraying.
Exactly. That's a great analogy.
Right.
Every time a cell divides to make a new cell, those telomeres get a little bit shorter. And eventually they get so short that the cell just can't divide properly anymore and it dies.
Wow.
This process of telomere shortening, it's happening in all living things.
Really?
It's just a natural part of life.
So aging is kind of like baked into the very fabric of biology.
It really...
But of course, that doesn't stop us from wondering, if we can somehow outsmart those telomeres,
Right.
live longer, maybe even forever. I mean, the article mentions how this desire for immortality pops up everywhere in human history,
It does.
from ancient myths to modern sci-fi movies. Why do you think we're so fascinated by living forever?
I think it's kind of a fundamental human desire to push the boundaries of what's possible, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what could be more tempting than conquering death itself?
Right.
Immortality represents the ultimate victory over our limitations. I think there's also this element of fear of the unknown, what happens after we die.
Yeah,
Immortality offers a way to just kind of avoid that unknown.
I see your point. It's like we're hardwired to keep searching for a way to extend life.
We are.
And while true immortality might be a long way off,
Yeah.
this article points to some pretty exciting research that could significantly increase our lifespans.
Okay.
Like, for example, regenerative medicine. What exactly is that?
Yeah.
And how would it help us live longer?
Regenerative medicine focuses on repairing or replacing damaged tissues and organs. Think of it as like reversing some of the wear and tear that just comes with aging.
Okay.
One of the most promising areas within regenerative medicine is stem cell therapy.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
Stem cells are kind of like the blank slates of our bodies.
Yeah.
They have this potential to develop into many different types of cells.
So they're like the chameleons of the body.
Exactly.
Wow.
Which means they could be used to repair or even replace failing organs.
So instead of needing an organ transplant, you could potentially just grow a new one.
That's the idea. It's pretty incredible.
Are there any other areas of research within regenerative medicine that are showing promise?
Absolutely. There's been a lot of excitement around something called tissue engineering, where scientists are literally trying to build new organs from scratch using biomaterials in cells.
Oh, wow.
There's also this growing field of 3D bioprinting,
Oh, yeah.
which, sounds like science fiction, but it's actually becoming a reality. Scientists are using special printers to create living tissues layer by layer.
That is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
The article also talks about gene editing as another potential game changer in the quest to extend lifespan. So how could gene editing be used to combat aging?
Well, gene editing technologies like CRISPR-Cas9 are essentially tools that allow scientists to precisely target and modify specific genes within our DNA.
Oh.
Think of it like a microscopic pair of scissors that can snip out and replace faulty genes. Researchers are exploring how CRISPR could be used to repair DNA damage that accumulates over time.
So the damage that contributes to aging.
Right, exactly.
So we could potentially edit out the parts of our genes that cause us to age.
That's the hope, but
And that's getting into some serious sci-fi territory.
it is.
But are there any concerns about using such a powerful tool to manipulate our DNA?
Well, there are definitely ethical considerations that need to be very carefully addressed.
Of course.
Gene editing is still a relatively new technology, and we're just beginning to understand its potential and its risks.
Right.
We need to be very cautious and ensure that any applications of gene editing are done responsibly and ethically.
That's a good point. Okay, so we've got regenerative medicine and gene editing, both holding this incredible potential for extending human life.
Yeah,
But the article also mentions anti-aging drugs
it does.
as another area of active research.
Yeah.
What's the latest on that front?
There's been a lot of buzz around certain compounds that have shown some promising results in animal studies, like rapamycin and resveratrol.
Okay.
Rapamycin was originally developed as an immunosuppressant for organ transplant patients, but it was later found to have life-extending effects in animals.
Wow.
Resveratrol is a compound found in grapes and red wine,
Oh.
and it's been linked to various health benefits, including potential anti-aging effects.
So we might be able to pop a pill to slow down aging.
Maybe someday.
It sounds almost too good to be true. But the article doesn't just focus on the exciting possibilities.
No, it doesn't.
It also delves into the potential downsides of drastically extending the human lifespan.
Yeah, it really does. And that's what makes this article so compelling. It acknowledges that allure of immortality,
Right.
but it also forces us to grapple with the complex implications of actually achieving it.
Yeah.
Like, what would it mean for society, for our planet,
Right.
and for our very understanding of what it means to be human?
Those are some weighty questions.
Yeah.
Where do we even begin to unpack all of that?
Well, one of the first things that comes to mind is overpopulation. If people stop dying of old age, our planet could quickly become overcrowded.
Yeah.
Resources like food, water, and energy are already stretched thin in many parts of the world.
Yep.
Imagine the strain if the population just kept growing indefinitely.
That's a sobering thought.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if extending lifespan would ultimately lead to more suffering
It could.
rather than less. And what other potential downsides should we be considering?
Well, think about social inequality. Would everyone have equal access to these life-extending technologies?
That's a good question.
Or would immortality become a luxury only available to the wealthy, creating an even deeper divide between the haves and the have-nots?
It's a scary thought. A world where the rich live forever while the rest of us continue to face mortality.
It's a real concern. And beyond those practical concerns, there are also those big existential questions, right?
Yeah.
How would our understanding of life and death change if death was no longer a certainty?
Right.
Would a life without an end even be meaningful?
It's almost like the article is challenging us to consider not just the scientific possibilities, but also the profound philosophical and societal implications of messing with the very nature of life and death.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
We have.
We've explored those cellular mechanisms of aging.
Yeah.
We got a glimpse of some pretty incredible research aimed at extending human lifespan.
It is pretty incredible.
And we even started to scratch the surface of those ethical and philosophical dilemmas that come with the possibility of living much, much longer.
And I think there's still so much more to unpack.
Definitely. There is. We've only just begun to explore the potential benefits and challenges of extending human life.
Yeah.
And there's this whole other layer to this conversation,
Right.
which is about finding meaning and purpose in life, whether we live for 80 years or 800.
Exactly. And that's where we'll pick up in the next part of our deep dive.
I can't wait.
It's really fascinating how we've covered so much already, yet it feels like we're just scratching the surface, you know? We've talked about the science, the possibilities, but what about the human element?
You're so right. We haven't even touched upon what a world with like significantly extended lifespans would mean for our values, our relationships, or even our sense of purpose.
Yeah, and that's where this article takes a really thought-provoking turn. It shifts the focus from, can we live forever, to, should we, and if so, how do we make those extra years meaningful?
Yeah, I am really intrigued by this part of the article. It almost feels like a reality check amidst all this talk about scientific breakthroughs.
It is. It's like a reality check. The author makes this compelling argument that instead of obsessing over living forever, maybe we should focus on maximizing the quality of the life we already have.
You know what? That resonates with me. It's so easy to get caught up in this idea of extending lifespan.
Yeah.
But what about the depth and richness of those years?
Right. The author suggests that maybe the true measure of a life well lived isn't its length, but its impact. It's about the connections we forge, the experiences we embrace, and the contributions we make to the world around us.
That makes a lot of sense. Instead of chasing immortality, what if we poured our energy into addressing those big global challenges?
Yeah.
Like poverty, hunger, or disease.
Yeah, that's a powerful thought. Imagine the progress we could make if we redirected all of those resources and that human ingenuity towards solving these really pressing issues. What if instead of seeking to prolong our individual lives,
Right.
we focused on improving the quality of life for all of humanity?
It's almost like the article is urging us to shift our perspective, to think less about adding years to our lives and more about adding life to our years.
I think that's a brilliant way to put it. And this shift in thinking leads to some really interesting questions. For example, what if the key to a fulfilling life isn't about extending it indefinitely,
Right.
but about finding purpose and meaning within the time we have?
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's about embracing the present moment and making the most of each day,
Right.
regardless of how many days we ultimately get.
Exactly. And that leads us to another point that the author raises, which I thought was really interesting. What if this pursuit of immortality actually distracts us from living a truly meaningful life? What if in our quest to extend life, we miss out on the beauty and richness of the present moment?
That's a really profound thought. It's like we're so focused on avoiding death that we forget to truly live.
It is. The author doesn't provide easy answers to these questions, which is both frustrating and refreshing at the same time. It's clear that they're wrestling with these questions just as much as we are.
Right.
But by raising these points, the article challenges us to think deeply about our own values and priorities. What matters most to us? What kind of legacy do we want to leave behind?
I'm finding this conversation so stimulating. It's making it question my own assumptions about aging and mortality.
Me too.
Huh.
And I think that's the power of this article. It was not just about the science of aging. It's about sparking a conversation about what it means to live a good life, regardless of how long that life may be.
So if we step back from this intense discussion about immortality,
Yeah.
what are some practical takeaways for us, for the listener right now?
I think one of the biggest takeaways is the importance of focusing on what truly matters in life. It's about nurturing our relationships, pursuing our passions, and making a positive impact on the world around us.
Okay.
It's about living with intention and appreciating the preciousness of time.
I love that. It's like a reminder that we have the power to create a meaningful life right now, regardless of what scientific advancements may or may not come in the future.
Absolutely. And another key takeaway is the importance of embracing the unknown. We don't have all the answers when it comes to aging and death, but maybe that uncertainty is part of what makes life so beautiful and intriguing.
Yeah, I think you're right. Instead of fearing the unknown, we can choose to embrace the mystery and appreciate the journey.
Yeah.
So even with all this talk about extending lifespan, maybe the most important question is not how long can we live,
Right.
but how can we make our lives, however long they may be, truly count?
That is a question worth pondering.
Yeah.
And that's where we'll continue our exploration in the final part of our deep dive.
Wow, this deep dive has really got me thinking. We went from talking about tiny telomeres to growing new organs and even editing our genes. It's a lot.
It is a lot to take in. And I think it's important to remember that aging is incredibly complex. It's not just one thing we can fix to suddenly live forever.
Right. The article mentions that genetics, lifestyle, and environmental factors all play a role. It's like this big web of influences.
It is. And even if we could extend our lifespans, there's still no guarantee that we could eliminate all diseases. Like cancer, heart disease, or dementia. We might live longer,
Right.
but would those extra years be healthy and fulfilling?
Yeah, that's a big question.
Yeah.
It makes you think about what we really want when we talk about living longer.
Yeah.
Is it just adding years?
Right.
Or is it about living those years in a way that feels vibrant and meaningful?
I think the article is suggesting that maybe our focus should be on improving the quality of our lives rather than simply extending them.
Right.
What if we focused on learning how to age well rather than just how to age longer?
I like that idea. Instead of chasing some fountain of youth,
Right.
what if we focused on creating a society that supports healthy aging and helps people thrive throughout their whole lifespan?
That's a great point. And it ties back to what we were discussing earlier about finding meaning and purpose in life. Whether we live for 80 years or 800, what matters is how we choose to spend that time.
Yeah.
And what kind of impact we have on the world around us.
It's like that quote, it's not the years in your life that count, it's the life in your years.
Exactly. And that's the message I'm taking away from this whole deep dive. It's not about denying the science or ignoring the possibilities. It's about acknowledging the wonder of right now and choosing to live each day to the fullest.
You know what? I couldn't agree more. This has been such a journey exploring this topic with you, and I think we've covered so much.
I have.
From the cellular level all the way up to these philosophical questions about life and death and what it all means.
It's been a really thought-provoking conversation, and I hope our listeners have a lot to think about, too.
I hope so, too. And who knows, maybe this deep dive has sparked some new ideas for you or inspired you to look at life a little differently.
That would be great.
Whatever the case, we hope you enjoyed joining us on this exploration.
Yes, and until next time, keep those questions coming, keep diving deep, and keep seeking out knowledge that expands your understanding of the world and your place in it.
We'll see you on the next deep dive.